Hello out there. Welcome to the Trumped Up Live Show. I am your host, Tiny Cross-H.U.G. And, you know, what makes me proud is uh, forums and platforms which allows, us as a culture to come together and actually have discussions, right? And do so in a matter in which, there necessarily doesn't have to be a fight. We can come with respect for each other, and we can just talk. We can, you know, um, that's important to all aspects of life, all forms of communication. Without any emotions getting put into play. When it comes to us having different views, I believe that's a part of growth, and I believe that I have about 10 females today who went on air and created content uh, regarding their different views about being conservative and liberal, which is an interesting topic because you think about liberals, you think about how we as black people, how can we still run with Democrats? But then you also look at the perspective of conservatives and you consider like, well, even though Republicans gave us the opportunity to win freedom, they actually didn't want us to be a part of this country either, right? There's always had been a scheme for us to either potentially go back to Africa. Even I think that narrative came out of the Republican Party, while the Democratic Party, the liberals, sought to keep control of us and keep us enchained, in bonded into slavery. Well, on today's show, the Trumped Up Live show, and I must do this. You must like and subscribe to the channel. Keep updated with some of the stuff that I talk about. Allow for commentary and providing me with some comments so that I can have more discussions and see what would you like for me to talk about. Right? It's all about positive vibes. Right? It's all about transformation. It's all about what type of soldier that you want to be. So, with that said, it is a good day to be a soldier. Let's go over here and check out these video with regards to these ladies because I'm not gonna get into all the topics. It's like the oh wow. I'm sorry. The video is like an hour and some long. I'm having a problem with camera troubles right now. Got too many cameras hooked up. Probably. It doesn't matter. I want to get into this because there is a lot of with regards to black fatigue, and due to that fact, and they have a source of saying that black people really can't. It's all about our intelligence, and the reason why so much of our culture is depicted in the wrong light. Here are some ladies who are going to show you that very opposite. Of course, you can tell from the discourse of the conversation that these women and these females are college educated, and they have open perspectives and different perspectives about the political arena in which we deal with here in the United States. So I would like to give the opportunity for us all to join in and chime in about what they have to talk about, and I will also give a reaction and put in my male perspective, from a male's perspective, of what I think. Right. All right. So let's go over here and check them out.
True at all. You
That's
need to
absolutely
read,
true.
honey.
So
Reparations
Right
are
now, they're going to
just
talk about
and
reparations.
necessary. Okay, go.
just and necessary. Okay, I actually am glad you repeated that because I thought you said they were just unnecessary.
Yeah, so I'm going to say, like I said, that I believe that people who are enslaved shouldn't get
reparations from people who were never slave owners. And it's just like, how would that even work? And then what about the Black people that own slaves? Like, it's just so much to go into it. Instead of looking for a handout, which is what typically liberals and Democrats do, why don't we just work hard to, in the country that is one of the greatest countries in the world and people come here to die, why don't we just work our butts off to have more?
So, reparations is not, we're not talking about just Black folks, because Japanese received reparations after World II. So there are times where reparations are just. It just seems that in our country, when it applies to Black folks, we're the only ones that aren't going to get it. That's historically the case.
I think that that's an interesting thing to point out, that historically people have gotten reparations. Slavery was messy, and as was mentioned, there were white slave owners. There were Black people who owned slaves as well. There were white indentured servants from Ireland and Italy. There were people who came to this country as free Blacks from the very beginning. How would you do it? And this is a direct question that I would love for one of you to answer. How would we repair through reparations in a way that is fair and just?
And if I can just add, and also, what do you do with biracial people? With people of lineage of both sides? Okay.
First and foremost, we're not getting anything. I just want to make sure that we're clear. We're not.
But that's probably true.
For example, for my parents,
I totally agree with her on that. We're not going to get anything, and it's all those different perspectives in which they just talked about and discussed. They didn't really discuss it, to a comprehensive extent, but this in summary, because the show is what it is, right? Yeah, we're not going to get that. The reason why I say we should get it, even though I know that we're not going to get it, is because after slavery, we were supposed to go through a form of reconstruction, and we didn't. There was an attempt to, and we didn't. And that was to keep us in bondage. That's why you had the black laws and the vagrancy laws. So, and it still persists to this day, even in more recent times, where you have the mass incarceration, right? You wouldn't. I still believe to this day you wouldn't have a police force. The black population is what build up the police force in this nation, let alone the fire department and all this other stuff. With the systematic, pins against the black people is what the black people needs to be receiving reparations for. Even because it hasn't stopped this idea of controlling these people, the black culture, since the ends of slavery. Even though we was granted freedom, it's still find a ways to not allow these people to be economically successful. We got it through, subprime loans, or, where we just couldn't get loans. We got it from the war veterans who couldn't, even though they fought, in wars in this country, who still couldn't buy homes, who wouldn't be offered the loans that you would necessarily get to white people. We could talk about generational, just controls in order to see us not economically be successful in this country. And the reason why we should necessarily get reparations is because while we took the opportunity to be about merit and do things on the perspective of like I said, merit. One of the economic disadvantages in which was done to us is you shipped all our jobs to China, all the manufacturing jobs in which we were working at. So we've suffered systematically. So it's like, how do you give reparations to somebody who wasn't a part of slavery? Well, we're still suffering from the ideology of slavery. You know what I'm saying? And this is why we deserve reparations. And so we can recover from the economic toll, the cultural toll that our culture has suffered from the, the us against the tribal principles that has not allowed us to be a part of this country when we have done so much to make this country great.
Parents who grew up in the South in Jim Crow, I feel like reparations for that generation is something that is very trackable and very doable because they were redlined, they were kept from owning homes, they were kept from being able to build generational wealth. And I think that is a good starting point for people 75 and older that are in the Black community, that you could easily give them what they were kept from back in the 50s and the 60s before the civil rights happened. So that's what my solution would be. Trying to track it back to slavery, yes, it should have happened because slave owners did get reparations, but the Black community that were enslaved did not. So if we're going to look at some way to try to give repair, I think starting with the people that suffered through the Jim Crow would probably be the best and most easiest and just way to do
Can
that.
I just say, I think that's fair.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So one thing that I thought was interesting that you said was the idea of generational wealth. With such a small percentage of the white population having owned slaves, I think one false idea is that it was all the white people that were enslaving all of the Black people, but really only, I mean, honestly, it's less.
but they still benefited from it.
Why are you fighting so hard for a world where we don't try to right these wrongs at all? I'm so confused. Even you mentioning like, okay, well we had.
I'd love to finish. So, so when it comes to the idea of this long strand of generational wealth that was left to white people, it's just logically false. There's plenty of white people that are not descendants of slave owners. So if we are doing reparations for slaves, you mentioned the Japanese, you might mention the Holocaust and people that have gotten reparations in the past. One stark difference between us getting reparations now and those reparations are those were reparations that were given directly to the people that got wronged and is going directly toward their generations after. I really want to ask how you think it would work out genealogically, how we would trace down who is a descendant of slaves, and also how it would work as far as payment, because Blacks have been paying taxes all of this time. Would it essentially be Blacks paying themselves back?
Well, it's
and
what
then
I said
also,
with Jim Crow. That's the only,
That's
and
probably
so-
what I would do,
and
to be honest.
I also want to ask as well, how exactly, and I'll be honest, how exactly you see all Black people getting a $50,000 check after we determine who gets it, right? After we hire on we're talking about a multi-trillion-dollar operation when we're talking about reparations, and how this would end up truly being executed, not in a utopian idea of all Black people get this money. But then you also have to think about what reparations are. Reparations, by definition, do not need to be money. Reparations can also be education,
Yeah,
a multitude of
exactly.
things. And I think what's important is that when it comes down to it with reparations, we are giving 50,000, however much money you think reparations should be, to people that just by fact are not educated on financial independence.
So give them education.
Okay, education is perfectly fine with me, but I think when we have to figure out if you want education to be a precursor to finances, we'd have to invest very dramatically.
I think the Jim Crow idea is perfect because, like, my husband and I, both of our grandfathers were in Korea, and when they came back from Korea, they had very starkly different experiences. One was a
Excuse me about that. So my take on it is, yeah, there is another way to give out reparations, and one form of reparations, right, is credits, tax credits, for corporations who end up, in some form of fashion, and it has to be critiqued in a way so that we have a clear understanding about how this would work. But credits, corporations who receive credits for ensuring the economic mobility and stability and economic opportunities for individuals who will fit the criteria to receive these reparations, right? The reparations can be performed in the terms of credits to where it's not necessarily the taxpayer who has to pay, but the the corporations who actually will end up receiving the benefits for helping those individuals who fit the criteria for the receiving of reparations. We see this all the time. See, what needs to happen is the leadership needs to take place, and a business is always looking for those type of opportunities into where they can cut the cost of their bottom line. So you seen this with Tesla. Tesla has like three manufacturings buildings to manufacture their cars in the state of California alone. They are assisting with the infrastructure with regards to supplying power to their EV vehicles. You find more of Tesla power stations than any other power stations that's out here in Los Angeles. I know for right now. You got places like Charge Point, who's in the parking lot. You may find like two charging points when Tesla, on the other hand, you can find upwards of around 20 charging stations, and then these are supercharging stations. So one way to actually go about the reparations are credits, and those type of reparations can be pushed off on the corporations, and the corporations will align with it because it helps them in their bottom line.
To get a job, one wasn't, right? One had GI benefits, one didn't. And
Is it a black man and
oh
a
yeah,
white?
my husband's white. So, and at the end of the day, like, I think it's important to recognize that there's some generational wealth that could have been built that wasn't built. And think about the mental like toll of coming back from war and then going from one war to another, like Birmingham, Alabama, coming from Korea, and like imagine what life was like and you couldn't get a job because of like no GI benefits were given. Like yes, legally maybe they should have, but also Jim Crow was the law of the land back then. So how in the world are we supposed to not like? And I think that what you said is beautiful about using education, right? Because my family personally, like education was like our way out. Like that's why that like, and I think a lot of Black families, that's why we hold on to education so well. But then kind of going back to like right now, the Department of Education is getting dismantled.
So basically, this is how I would do reparations. I think that a way not to burden taxpayers would be to sort of do it like how Native Americans get free college, which is they have to submit their own lineage. You have to trace your own lineage yourself, submit it, and then I think there's a certain period, I don't know the amount of years that we should not pay taxes, just straight up. We have contributed so much to this country, or at least our ancestors did. We should get that leg up. I went to the University of Alabama. I'm from Atlanta. I've seen so many white people benefit directly from slavery to this day. Like my best friend in college, her family lived on a plantation that was handed down to her from her family that was made off the back of Black people. And it's the biggest residence in Alabama. That is insane. That is sick. We deserve for our ancestors to be treated with the respect to just like be paid for their labor. That's it.
If I can just interject really quickly, because I actually did hold my hand up. Yes, I think
Yes,
that
you're pro.
reparations should be given. There's two reasons I believe that. One, it was promised, right?
Yes.
Flat out, it was promised. Go ahead and do it. Two, I know that it would be the biggest bump to the United States economy that we've ever seen because Black people do not know how to manage their money. And that is
But
a fact.
Americans
so
don't
hold
either.
on,
Yeah,
hold on. I'll
yeah.
finish. I'll finish what I'm
Yeah.
saying. I'm not just saying, look, we're a bunch of Black women, so when I say Black people, I'm worried about Black people. I don't care what other Americans are doing. I'm talking about Black people in the space that's about Black people right
I'm gonna cut her off real fast because that money is going to circulate back into the American economy, no matter how the Black people spend it. One thing for sure that you can realize with regards to Black people is that we don't have a connection from where we come from. You know what I'm saying? That's why there is a distinction when people are trying to draw the distinction between African American, and Black, because we don't have a connection back to Africa like that. We would like to know, where we come from, but if we were to go over there to Africa, we're not going to be as accepted as, we're not going to be as accepted over there. We still have to deal with a culture and figuring out the opportunities that's over there from a place that we don't know nothing about. We don't have a connection over there like that. That's why you see the Immigration Act of 1965. You see the people that mainly coming over with regards to family reunification. You see that those individuals are mainly Hispanic and Asians. They're not Black people with regards to a family reunification that was under that act and the opportunities. So we don't know the opportunities that's over there. It's not about how necessarily we would spend the money. This is why I chimed in on the idea of credits, because if and I like the whole idea of taxes as well. But if you're not being taxed from within this country, then you have no form of representation. So that's the only thing that I would say in denying that, in that belief of not paying taxes. I think, like I said, it would come in a better form of credits and have the corporations take the lead in building up the Black community, and it helps their bottom line.
Now, Black people do not know how to manage our money. That's just a fact overall. It's an unfortunate fact. If you want to see the sales for Nike explode, you want to see the sales for, luxury cars explode, give people a bunch of money. It'll be like the Chappelle skit where the Black people got it. It's a fact. But what I want to make clear, or the way I think of it, is that if you're talking about programs and opportunities, we already have free colleges. Just because it's not specifically for Black people doesn't mean it's not available to the Black community. We already have public housing. We already have SNAP. We already have people getting free, we already have people getting free health care if you make low enough that you need it.
Hold on, there's a lot more of other people involved in that, and that's not Black people as well. So everybody receiving those type of benefits. We're talking about something that is specific for a specific injury that has been done to a people, and has devastated the culture with the systematic effects that we suffered after that point. Even though the Jim Crow is a good starting point to go with, but you got to think about the whole perspective of mass incarceration. You got to think about the perspective of steady having the inability to buy housing because we weren't getting the loans that was necessary in certain neighborhoods. You got to think about the drugs that was, pretty much pushed on us for us to sell it to our own in these communities and stuff like that. So, and it just, and you got to think about the manufacturing when we were looking for the opportunities. You got to think about all the manufacturing that went over there to China, and that build up Chinese military that created China into a second world power. So it still has an effect on us till this day.
My family is from South Carolina. My dad's family, my same situation as yours, but we own our home. It's a compound. It's not as big as Alabama, but it's really nice. 3 houses. My grandfather built it by hand. There is a space in people's minds right now that says, I'm a victim and I need help. There's some people that literally just believe I need help and therefore I must wait for the help to show up. And then there's other people that say, I need my life to be better, and they go out and get it and make it happen for themselves. And
I do believe that we should be pushing to make life for ourselves, but at the same time, everybody else has had the opportunity to get the upper hand. The white people was a part of the social welfare system, and it is very well noted that Social Security was even to go to the GI Bill, man. You wouldn't fall for this country. And you still couldn't have access to education. So, you know, taking it from her perspective, and how we've like gotten social work. No, that is social welfare programs and being a part of that. Man, that was first and foremost something that necessarily wasn't meant for us to be on in the first place. And that's why in the 80s and the 90s when you had the welfare queen, because it's like, oh, all of a sudden we got these black people on these social programs, we need to get them off, and this, that, and that, and the other, when you completely also use those programs to devastate take the man out of the black people's household. So no.
I think that when we keep begging for reparations, instead of just saying, you know, like you said, it's never gonna happen, it's never gonna happen, so move on. There's every other opportunity in front of you. There's every avenue to better yourself and make a better way for your family down the line. Focus on that instead of begging the government to do something that they clearly don't want to do.
At this point. It's not even like begging the government, it's just like reminding, dude, you owe us.
Black on black crime is as a result of underinvestment and over-policing.
Yes and no.
When we're talking about violent crime, this is largely done by men. And so I have a hard time blaming under-policing and underinvestment on what I fundamentally believe is a patriarchy issue, is a male violence issue, across the board, across races, across everything. Men commit violent crimes, and they commit them to each other a lot of the time as well.
Yeah, she must not be on social media, because every time and looking at some of these YouTube pages and some of these basketball wives, because it's always drama. Must not be listening to some of these rap lyrics, and you're not keeping up with the drama, which is a good thing. I don't blame her for not wanting to be a part of the drama. However, because there is a possibility that you could just stay away, right? Just stay up out of it. So, there is a lot more women that's going to prison nowadays. So it's just not a man thing, right? And I don't want to say necessarily it's a cultural thing, but maybe it take a long time for us to get out the physicality. It's for the majority of us to get out our physical means of handling our situations, and to have the ability to be able to talk on stage like this. And these are just regular individuals. Is what I like about this whole idea. These are not people that to be famous and stuff like that, and has gotten a platform to do stuff like this. These are just regular individuals who came on the show and they have the capacity to come on and talk, and have people just listen.
I can't agree with that. It's just these problems, because white on white crime exists and whatever all these other crimes exist. I don't think it's fair to hone in on this. I think that this exists so we can say that black people are more aggressive. That's why there's this conversation. But it's a male issue. It's a male violence issue. It's a patriarchy issue. So, and I think that that's not what to blame.
I also think and I would love to know if you guys agree.
I just think that it becomes a patriotic issue when when the contributions that black people has made in this country, you don't give them their due credit. And because you don't give them their due credit, the United States is not ultimately being the place in which it could ultimately be. Instead, you gave what a portion of yourself to another country. You know what I'm saying? And you continues to do that until more recently, until where the attacks on China has pretty much dominated the news. But you allow China to become exactly what it is. If you would have gave that same power to black people, man, this country would be, it's pretty much untouchable militaristically. I mean, in terms of the military, right? But China wouldn't stand a chance. Now, it's all right for us to help other countries from a humanitarian perspective, but in recent times we helped other countries so much if we just would have just been focused on black people as a brother, and just for 50 years to help him in his status within this nation, instead of consistently trying to downgrade him to a second class citizen, we would have been able to see better outcomes.
Or disagree on this, but it's also a proximity issue, right? Like you said, white on white crime is a thing. We don't talk about that. You most likely will end up, unfortunately, involving yourself in crime with the people that you're around naturally. And black communities were historically, you have to look at the history of it, they're pushed into those areas because of what? I'm actually asking because of what?
Redlining.
Right. And so,
projects.
right, all of that. So when you're around those people all the time, that's who is going to end, you're going to end up committing crimes against those people. It's the same with white people. So I guess my question is, do you think that if those black people were able to leave and kind of gentrify in a different way other communities, would they still be committing the same amount of crimes that you view that they're committing?
What you're suggesting is that the black community is inherently violent, and the
I'm not
hold on,
suggesting
hold
that.
on,
No, I'm
hold
not
on,
suggesting
hold
that.
on,
I'm not
please.
suggesting that.
Let me finish my actual thought.
Okay.
The black community, when it's all together, is just going to inherently be violent, and the only way to remove the violence is to let us spread and intermix with other people. That's what I'm hearing from that
That's
statement.
not what I'm saying. I understand that's what you're hearing,
You
but
see
that's
what
not
I'm
what
saying?
I do, but that's not what I'm saying.
Because what you're implying is that when black people are gathered together, because of the proximity to other black people, we commit crimes.
No, that's
And
not what I'm saying.
What I
I'm
would
saying
ask,
I feel like
what
you
I would
understand
ask
what I'm
is,
saying.
why are we committing crimes?
But everybody
we
commits
we
crimes.
don't
That's the
have
point
to
that I'm saying.
commit
I'm saying everybody
crimes.
commits
Generational
crimes, and who you're in proximity with is who you will end up committing crimes against.
I think from the science background of like generational trauma and like thinking about how men are not taught, going back to what you're saying, men are not taught how to regulate their emotions. And think about all the
Men
anger
are
and
able
the
to be violent, which is a very different thing. Men don't have to regulate their emotions. Men
well,
can be.
I'm just
Men's
speaking
violence
from
is always
my
protected.
experiences, like in the mental health field of if we're not allowed to, well, anger is a secondary emotion. Underneath it is embarrassment, hurt, pain, like all of these vulnerable emotions, and men in our society are not taught how to process that. And if you take in generational trauma, all the trauma that black men have had to go through through chattel slavery. And like I said, my grandfather came back from war and he didn't get GI benefits and he has to support his family. Like, what do? It turns to anger. And the reason why there could be, and if you, again, kind of redlining, squishing all of these people and over policing, it's just, we're creating this self-fulfilling prophecy where no matter what, like there's going to be more violence in these areas because there's no, like, again, kind of going back to, we need the mental health programs, we need education programs to help uplift people so that that energy can go into art, it can go into school, it can go into all of these productive places so that we, and again, like if we like spread people out, you get exposed to different ways to, because I will say that if you are not taught how to do things and you are kind of stuck in this learned helplessness of, which I don't know if anyone will take that the wrong way, but it's just a term of like, you feel like there's no, like, kind of like we feel like with the the two-party system of like, if you say like, there's no way that I'm going to get out of this, that is a mental health issue of saying like, hey, there's another way to express anger. There's another way to process this other than picking up a gun and shooting at each other.
So
in terms of men, and I would term how they will try to process this in terms of men and masculinity. All right, we have to, take note of that. Woman plays a part in this as well. In terms of, look how many gangs in Los Angeles and gangs everywhere, from all throughout the United States who have had gun violence and stuff like that, or fights over females. You know what I'm saying? And females actually, you know, I don't want to say encouraging it, but in tacit ways, and not in a direct way, but indirectly, we are natural protectors. You know what I'm saying? We want to protect our females. So that aspect of, and it's more recently where dudes has been able to say, you know what, these females ain't worth it, right? But at the same time, we are naturally prone to want to defend our families. We are naturally prone to want to defend ourselves in terms of, just on a respect level. I mean that these are man's natural instincts. Now it does take a part of your surroundings for you to understand how to deal with these certain issues, right? And this is why I believe that your support system is so great in your possibilities in your possibilities and your outcomes, right? Because if you're around a bunch of people who don't necessarily understand what it is to be outside of a realm of an idea about how something is handled. And then they only means is going to be respond with regards to how something it should be handled. It takes um, just the exposure to something different, and for the person actually to want something different, because you know there's the things such as nonviolent crimes, right? So violence is not always the answer, and I think a lot of times, us as black men, we had to go to prison to necessarily sometimes learn this. We had to go to military to sometimes learn this, but still, those are violent, areas. Those are violent uh, perspectives from a bigger view, an outside view. When you think of a person as being in prison, you think of his violent nature, even though it might be a white collar crime. You know what I'm saying? Just like white people are known for white collar crimes, why black people may be known for violence, right? Or blue collar crimes. But so it's all about your ability to receive that outside support system for your personal growth. And sometimes, like Bruce Lee, he came from China. He left China, and from leaving China and search and coming to the United States and looking for opportunities, here he is. He became one of the biggest superstars in the world. So it's there all up in it. It's just having that support system. And this is why I believe that what needs to come from America in terms of Donald Trump has a very big platform. It needs to come from somewhere like the top. You know what I'm saying? It needs to come from somewhere like the top to where you begin to tell these young black men out here that yeah, you have the possibilities of doing better. I remember sometimes when used to have fights in the neighborhood. What would end up happening is you'll have a brother on the side telling me, bro, it ain't worth it. It's not worth the fight, bro. Like, go ahead, just walk away because it ain't worth it. Don't even worry about this. This is not for entertainment. This is not. This is ain't nothing funny about this. You know what I'm saying? Just go ahead and walk away. You good. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes out of those situations, I didn't end up fighting. It wasn't that I was a buster. We both walked away 9 times out of 10, right? But at the same time, it didn't happen just because we had somebody to give that different perspective.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it kind of sounds like you're giving these people who commit crimes an excuse for because whatever trauma
No.
that they've been through.
No,
I can say
that's
I'm
not
someone
what's
who's
saying
going through
anyway.
grief and trauma right now. My mom suddenly died 3 weeks ago, and I every single day, thank you. I go through every stage of grief multiple times a day. It is the most I can't cuss on here, but you know what I'm trying to say. And I still have to continue on going through my life. Our bills need to be paid. Me and my husband, I have to be there for him. I have to go through life. I don't get to just go, commit crime because I've been through trauma.
Do you have the support in place? Like, what does your support look
I mean,
like?
I have my husband, and we can
talk
discuss
about this
that.
too much
But
because
even
I'm
if
gonna
I
go into,
didn't,
like, therapy
that's
stuff,
still not
but-
an excuse to go and commit crime to
it's
harm
not,
people,
but if you
and
have
it's
no
not.
other option, if you have no
No,
idea what
I
to
don't
do.
agree.
Like, I will say, just from working with people and knowing, like, if you add in the mental health aspect of, like, we have echelon of needs. At the bottom is need for safety. What you guys are talking about is all the way up here. You can look it up, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's self-actualization of, like, knowing what to do. That's all the way up here. We're talking about feeding yourself and all that kind of stuff. That's
So why
down
did they
here.
go?
Ye- Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to go into next. You got people that's going through stress at work who, you know, so this can happen to anybody. You know what I'm saying? It just that doesn't necessarily have to be black people. It could be white people too. You go through stress at work and you just get tired of getting sick and tired. You get fed up of your employment conditions. Not necessarily that it got to be coming from your employer. It can be coming from the people that you are giving service to. That just pulls that trigger and necessarily make you have to gain a sense of respect from the point of who you are as a human being while this person feels entitled. because you're in a point of service and you can possibly lose your job or something like that. When it comes to them basically trying to either embarrass or humiliate you because of you have a specific need of having or being a restaurant worker, for instance, or being a doorbellsman or being a security guard. So it's just it's about pretty much in a lot of times what I think it is, like I said, it's about embarrassment, that I have to necessarily defend myself. That here you is, you trying to, you know, like I said, embarrass me from the point of how my life is going right now because I have this specific type of need. I'm trying to get through that need, but here you are, you trying to make a mockery of me of gaining opportunities through that need, in which it becomes an embarrassing factor and allows, I mean, some people to just blow up. And it don't have to be white, it don't have to be black, or it could be anybody, right? It could be female. So in terms of black on black crime, and speaking on it in regards to men, this happens to a lot of people. I see a female not too long ago, man, who was felt so entitled about getting her nails or hair done that she threw a pencil at the beautician. When the beautician, you were only, in terms of the rules, you were only allowed to be late twice. After that, then you're no longer allowed to make appointments. Now, this was a white woman that I actually knew. So, it's just that beautician, called the police, you know, thankfully, but that white woman who had a felony conviction and from priors that she had did 5 years ended up going back to jail.
From I have no idea what to do to I'm going to go murder someone or I'm going to go steal someone or I'm going to go steal a car.
So I think when you bring up generational trauma, I think people can experience trauma on a number of levels. I think it's an insult to the intellectual intelligence, the emotional intelligence of the Black community to say that you are going through X, Y, Z, so that must be the reason that you're killing people or robbing people, or and that's fair, but I think the Black community is smart enough to know what is right and what is wrong, and that killing people is not the answer. I don't think that murder is necessarily a result of only generational. I think fatherlessness is a big part of the generational trauma that exists in the Black
Who do we blame
community.
for that?
And Obama
For
spoke about that
fatherlessness?
as well. I know you
Welfare?
guys mentioned
No,
Obama.
I think we blame men who have kids and then abandon them.
Oh, well,
I think that's who we
I
blame.
love that.
I think that's who we blame. I think
I
that's who we
think
blame,
we
which is why it's
can
really
blame. But
important.
can I say something super fast? I want to point out that Black women were incentivized by the welfare state, by LBJ, to kick Black men out of their home so that they could get more assistance. So we have a track record benefiting from the government by not having a Black man in the house. You can have more money if you are a single parent home. What did people do? They said leave so that the father can be.
And that is true, right? Because 75% it was over before the social welfare campaign was going on, with regards to it being in black led households. Black people were 75% more married, but 75% had more opportunity to have a father in the house. Now, once the females, our black women start accepting the welfare from the government, and the black men start getting pushed out the house, here we are today with only 25% of our children with the father in the home. So, like I said, it's all about incentivizing, just those type of behaviors, and particularly those support systems by having somebody like a father in a home. You know what I'm saying? And not only that, just as a black man, I, always, in terms of representation for the culture, always attempt to enthuse myself not to, coming from a culture of, Los Angeles, we had to work for a long time not to just mean mug each other just because we didn't know each other. Nowadays, we have much more of appreciation for each other, but that was our support system. That was our culture in which we was going about that at that time. In today's times, yeah, it's still you still get a little bit of that, but for the most part, if you come with respect, if you come, like with some with an attribute that you are just another brother that's trying to make it out here, then by all means, man, you can pretty much get a pass anywhere. You know what I'm saying? Nipsey Hussle, Snoop Dogg, is for those of you who knows these individuals, I state these individuals because they are have a lot more familiarity within our households, but they are key examples of that.
A government could be my father. So that is why we are in that situation, because we have a culture issue.
I think it goes further back.
It probably does go further back, but I think that that is a pin that we can put in history where we were incentivized for not having a father at home, and now it became Black culture to not have a father at home. And we went from 85% two-parent households to about 25% two-parent households, and that is a huge reason. And one of the things that I keep hearing, can I just finish one thing, that I keep hearing from a particular side is that we have to blame external forces and look for external help for the problems in our community, because we cannot focus on changing our culture from the inside. And if we keep waiting for somebody else, daddy government, mental health programs, another program, another government grant, then we are never going to fix our internal culture around violence, around fatherlessness, around all of the things that have become common in the Black community that we need to change from the inside. We need to clean our own house.
I just have a quick question, specifically just honing in on the animosity. I don't want to say animosity, I shouldn't say that, but just you speaking about mental health programs. Why can that not be viewed as a compassionate on-ramp for people, rather than looking at it as a victimhood or trying to find somebody to help you?
I'm not against mental health programs. I think that a mental health program would only be valuable if mothers and fathers encourage their children to attend a mental health program. But it has become, first of all, taboo. So if we look at the culture of the Black community today and we said, bam, you have a mental health facility smack in the middle of the project, smack in the middle of where we were redlined and we'd been wronged, who would go?
If we put that mental health institution in the middle of a predominantly black neighborhood, what do you need? You need the transportation to get your kids there. You need the time off work to go there. You need to have the mental space to be able to commit whatever it is they're teaching you. These are all things that you fundamentally need to feel like the things that I need to feel secure, my access to housing, to food, to healthcare, all of that needs to be satisfied. And so I think that that's my main issue, I guess, when we're talking about mental health support, is that we're trying to give people something they're going to need for the top of that hierarchy, and we're not addressing the bottom of it.
We need all of it.
Yeah,
how do we address that?
Both.
Okay, so I think what everybody is missing here is obviously she brought up the fatherlessness, and it's a big problem within Black women, the culture that Black women believe in, and this is why they're 5 times more likely to raise criminals, to raise people who commit crimes. They kill the most of the Black community via abortion, and if you think
think
about
it's Black women's fault?
Absolutely, Black women have to be held accountable too, whether you know that or not. If you think about the music that they listen to, if you think about the music that they allow,
the same music.
it's all Black
Our
women
music has always
listen.
been a direct mirror into what our culture is. So when it comes down to it as a culture, I think one problem that we have is we do look to the party system, which is why I'm an independent. We look to the party system for who's going to help us, who's going to save us, and it always ends up going back to culture. All of our issues end up going back to culture, because at the end of the day, we can say we need this and we want this, but we as a collective need to make a conscious choice to do things differently. The reality is, you go to a Black community, you go to a white community, there are big differences in what we're seeing. And we can say it's this, and that, but to say that Black on Black crime is not a problem is a problem.
Yeah.
Crime is a problem.
What conservatism does
That's
is
a
it
deflection.
implores
No,
you.
it's not.
It implores you to take a step into, okay, we can look at this and this and this and that, but let's just trust our senses for 1 second. Really look at what is going on around us in our communities and really think, is it all of these people's fault? Or is there somebody behind that trigger that is making that conscious decision? Let's not we can get into all of the things, but in reality, to say that black on black crime or this and that are somebody else's fault is an insult to the intelligence of the black community. And to say that fatherlessness is not important, I'm a single mother
But
myself.
who's making those arguments?
Yeah, no one's saying that it's not.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's
we
not
need
a
to
problem.
empower people to be able to
But
be able to
you're
reach
saying
their
black
own.
on
You're
black.
saying to
You're
depend on
saying
the
everything
system.
is somebody
No,
else
we
is
need to
doing it
empower
too
people
and
to be able to
causing
do it
us.
themselves.
I believe in the black community enough to know that we have the ability to make things better for ourselves, and it starts with accountability and not pointing the finger.
Okay, so as you can see, one thing for sure, I'm glad that they were able to come up with the, perspective of that, I believe for one thing for sure is that the black people, the black woman needs the most help when it comes to understanding and getting themselves out the matrix of what has happened to our culture. W- Black women, we need, our some black. We need some leadership for our black women, even more so than the black men, because I see a lot of black men coming together all the time, and you see it all the time with regards to in this culture, in LA, with regards to gangs. You know what I'm saying? A lot of stuff has died down. There's more respect. Brothers are able to treat each other with more respect, and we have to deal with each other on a man's perspective, right? Now, this divide that has been between the black man and the black woman has been such for so long, and what we see as men, our women don't necessarily see, and what we see is hard to bring into the whole perspective of the female mindset, because it's been this thing to where our women consistently wants to fight us, right? And there is there is, not many people who are able outside of a black man who have the capabilities of dealing with that, right? And so when you think of about a black man's love, and you see a black man who is married, and who's actually willing to stay in things of that nature and be able to be a father to his child and want to do those such things and actually take on the attributes of being able to do that, that is a good man. I hope that you women and ladies out there can clearly find one. But I do believe that if there is anything that needs the most help within our community, I believe it's the black woman. It's not necessarily black men, even though the black men are not clear from fault. If we can, build up the esteem and the ideas of what the value and the importance of what a woman is for us in our community, I think it starts right there. I'm happy that in the city of Los Angeles, that what we are about to have right now, we're about to have a cultural area somewhere in between Lamarck Park and Central, to drive investment. But I hope that this type of investments can allow us to be able to show ourselves to be exactly what what we want to be, a culture that represents intelligence and not just the physical aspects of how we've been projected to ourselves and amongst so many other people as just a violent people. So I am thankful for the grand opening of this. I'm hoping that in that discussion with regards to this black cultural area in Los Angeles, I'm hoping that we create a safe zone that is amongst us all, so that we can explore the better ideas and have these have our cultural experience be something that everybody can enjoy. A safe zone is necessarily something that there is no violence. It's no wouldn't be no violence permitted in this area. This would allow the educational resources to come. This would allow the commercial resources to come in terms of economics, but it also will just be able to allow us to support each other in the making of bringing back the black and the family aspects of our culture. You know what I'm saying? Because that's hard to come across right now. And when you see when I not too long ago, man, I was in Beverly Hills, and it was a father with probably his son. The son was probably somewhere under 3 years old, and I just took note to how all these other races was looking at this black father like, wow, like we've done so much to their community. You know what I'm saying? We've done so much to their community, and it's just now starting to come out. You know what I'm saying? That to see that black man with his son, with his child, and it was just him and his child. I don't know where the mother was, but that was something that they all had to sit there and respect about that black man. So I appreciate you for spending the time with me. This is the Trumped Up Live Show. I am Tiny Cross-H.U.G. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments so that I can get a feel for what you want me to air out. And enjoy the rest of your day.